Right, welcome to our 11:20 session. My name is Ted Normanton. I'm from the Canadian Cyber Centre. I am session chair for today, and I'd like to go through some housekeeping for you. First of all, this is TLP White, or as the new system, TLP Clear. So you're free to use this in social media, etc. There's going to be time for question and answers at the end. There are microphones here and at the back in the middle corridor. Do not forget to fill in your surveys, please. We need those. I'm going to be the program chair for next year, and we need all the information we can get in order to have a really good program next year for you. And make sure your devices are silenced, please. With that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Eoin Byrne. He has had extensive background in cluster work. He's a cluster manager at Cyber Ireland, the National Cyber Security Cluster Organization, and he has led the establishment and management of the cluster since 2018. Eoin brings together industry, academia, and government, and he's here to do his presentation. Take it away.
Don't think the clicker is working, so we'll go without it. Thanks very much, Ted. As you'll see, my background isn't in cybersecurity. It's from a non-technical area. It's in economics, so be kind to me here today. I'm going to talk about some things, that aren't really the technical side of cybersecurity, but I think it's of interest to the FIRST community. And I think it's also really important that FIRST is here in Ireland this week, because not only is it important for Ireland, because we need to show the importance of cybersecurity to society, to government, to industry. But Ireland needs to start playing its role as well in tackling cybersecurity issues globally, which it is already. And I think what FIRST is going to do is it's going to leave a lasting legacy in Ireland, because all of you are here, through the presentations, the ideas, the connections that are made here. And I'd just like to congratulate the organisers in the local organising committee, in particular Brian Honan and Emer O'Neill as well for bringing it here. So I'm going to be talking about Ireland's cybersecurity sector and how it's grown over the last number of years and the opportunity for growth as well, and why this is really important for our national cyber resilience. So I'm going to kind of start at the end, and then I'm going to work back to some of the challenges that we're facing in Ireland around the cybersecurity sector and its growth, national cybersecurity challenges, and how many of these challenges really aren't just technical security challenges. Many of them are non-technical challenges that are very complex. And no one organisation, no one government body, no one country is really going to be able to solve these challenges, these complex challenges that we're facing today and tomorrow into the future, and how collaboration is one of the only ways forward, and how we've used this model of collaboration in setting up a national cybersecurity cluster or an industry representative body. And I think I'm already preaching to the converted, because this is what FIRST is. It's a community of people from across industry, academia, government and society working to tackle the security issues that we face globally. And then I'm just going to finish up with, okay, well, how are we actually doing this collaboration piece? Because it's great to talk about it, but it is difficult to do. And what have we achieved to date, and what have we learned from it as well? So just going back to 2018, when we were starting out looking at the cybersecurity industry in Ireland, and Ireland is known as being a tech hub for Europe. We have many of the top multinational companies that are based here, most of them US-owned, across technology and internet. Many of them would be based in Dublin. And out of this, we saw kind of an emerging cybersecurity industry building up with US multinational companies. 5 of the top 10 software security companies were located here in 2018. We saw the emergence of a domestic cybersecurity industry that were solving challenges or the industry need of both Irish SMEs, but also some large companies and government agencies as well. At the time, there was we estimated about 6,000 people employed in the sector. But one of the strong things that we have in Ireland is our education system. And we knew that we have a high number of graduates coming out of that education system from a STEM background. So that was something that we knew we could build on. Ireland is a neutral country or a non-aligned country, and I suppose that would work to our advantage now. And then I suppose what we've done in the meantime is just last month we launched this report, which for the first time we now have an understanding of the size and scale of the cybersecurity industry in Ireland. We're able to understand the companies that are here, their operations, the opportunities for growth, and to benchmark it against other countries internationally. And so with this data, we were able to develop a position paper looking forward to the opportunity to 2030 to grow the cybersecurity industry in Ireland. And that's really critical because with a strong cybersecurity industry of both multinational companies and indigenous Irish companies, that also helps our national cyber resilience as well. So I'm just going to go through some of the findings from this report. And we now know that there's nearly 7,500 people employed in the cybersecurity industry in Ireland. These people are employed in 489 firms, so nearly 500. 160 of them are pure play cybersecurity companies. And there's another 330 companies then that we would classify as diversified. So cybersecurity may make up an important part of their products or their services. Or what we've also seen a large growth in is the number of diversified companies across many different sectors, multinational companies who have their SOCs or product security teams here in Ireland as well. And these companies we've estimated for the cybersecurity companies, it's 100% of revenue. For the diversified companies, it's taking kind of an average, maybe around 25% of revenue, that their revenue annually is 2 billion, and they're contributing 1.1 billion to the Irish economy. So that's really important information to be able to go to government and show the importance of the sector and the companies that they're contributing. We were able to map what are the products and the service offered by these various different companies. So you can see here a large number around managed security service provision, securing application networks and cloud environments, risk compliance and fraud, threat intel. And then we're seeing quite a lot of growth in the OT security space and connected devices. And then that other category is anything from internal R&D to recruitment and surveillance and a couple of other areas that we put in there together. We were able to do a nice heat map of where are all the companies in the cybersecurity sector in Ireland. And from those 500 companies, there's about 730 offices that we mapped. You can see Dublin obviously is a hub of the cybersecurity industry in Ireland because of the number of companies that are here and the customers. But interestingly enough, you can see these clusters all across the country. And a lot of them are actually located close to, I suppose, major cities, urban areas, but also linked into the universities and the third level institutes. So you can see a list of the third level institutes, the research centres, who are providing graduates and talent into the sector around the country here. So we're seeing strong cybersecurity clusters, not only in Dublin, but in Cork, Galway, and the West Coast, Limerick. And some of you might even see these places if you're staying on for the weekend. And we also looked at then not only the number of offices, but the employment per capita in these regions to really understand what is the focus of cybersecurity employment across the country. And while Dublin really does stand out with a number of companies, we see that on a per capita basis, Cork is the hub of cybersecurity activity. And I like to point this out because I'm from Cork. And any second city, likes to point out how we have one over on the capital city. And that's where Cyber Ireland is based. So we're hosted in a university, Munster Technological University in Cork. And there's really a hub of US multinational cybersecurity activity in Cork as well as Galway, Limerick. And we've even compared it to Belfast, which is a strong cybersecurity sector up in Northern Ireland. And these are just a selection of some of the cybersecurity companies and operations that we have in Ireland. So you can see that we have a number of pure play cybersecurity companies. The cluster in Cork built up around two key ones, Trend Micro and McAfee in the noughties, who moved their EMEA headquarters to Ireland. They started off with tech support roles, shared services, operations, finance, inside sales, but have built on those tech support roles and moved up the line to engineering jobs, R&D, SOC, threat intel teams as well. And so I suppose this is kind of one of our key goals of the cluster, is to develop these multinational operations, higher up the value chain to deliver highly skilled jobs. But outside of the cybersecurity companies, you can see a wide range of diversified companies that have their security operations centres, like HP have their European Cyber Defence Centre in Galway, to Dell and VMware, who have product security teams based here in Ireland. And it's off of the 7,500 people that are employed here. 7 out of 10 of those jobs are actually in US multinationals, showing the importance of that FDI to the development of the sector here. So it's off the back of these companies that we're seeing the development of the domestic cybersecurity industry in Ireland. And we've mapped out that there's 60 Irish companies that are already exporting internationally. You can see they're across various different areas, from MSSPs to identity access management, application data protection, IT infrastructure and hardware, GRC. And what's really exciting is now we're seeing a number of startups emerging off the back of some people working in these multinational companies, some people servicing the needs of these multinational companies that are starting up their own cybersecurity companies as well. And with this data, we were able to look out to the future and say, on the current growth rate of 10% and where we are today, what's the cybersecurity sector going to look like in 2030? We surveyed our members, and 83% of them expected their cybersecurity teams to grow over the next 12 months. 50% of those companies said that they're going to grow at a rate of 25% or higher. And so we're predicting that from 7,500 jobs today, we can move to 17,000 jobs by 2030, with an economic contribution to the economy of 2.5 billion, which is really, really significant. But if we're going to do that, there's a number of challenges that we're already facing today that need to be addressed. And the only way we can address these challenges is through a collaborative approach. And just to highlight some of them that we've identified through this report, you're probably all seeing this in your organizations and across the world, is skills shortages. And it was actually the reason why Cyber Ireland was set up in the first place. But from our survey last year, 60% of the firms had staff-related issues around suitable candidates, skills shortages, skill gaps, salaries, retentions. And it's no surprise that Irish SMEs and government agencies are really struggling with this over multinational companies. Secondly, we saw investment was a core problem for companies as well. 26% of them found issues with raising or securing finance, which was impacting their ability to be able to expand globally, to scale rapidly, and also serve larger clients as well. And then thirdly, looking at the domestic sector, we see a lot of Irish cybersecurity companies who are less than 10 people within their operations. And if we want to grow the sector significantly for Indigenous companies, we need to be able to scale the size of those companies so that they can address the needs of larger companies and deliver high-value cybersecurity services and products to them. And then finally, research and development. If we do want to become a leader for cybersecurity and contribute to that globally, we need to address the fragmented R&D landscape, where we've seen a low level of collaborative research and development between industry and academia. A lot of the R&D projects are mainly small scale at the moment, and this needs to be addressed urgently. So you can see here that the challenges that I'm pointing out are not of a technical nature, but of a non-technical nature, and relate to skills, the economy, the political system, working with government and society in general. And then bringing it back up to some of the wider challenges we're seeing in Ireland. There was a report from Grant Thornton last year that was a follow-up to a previous report in 2017 that found the economic cost of cybercrime in Ireland was around 10 billion. There was a 50% increase in online fraud, 45% increase in phishing complaints, and a survey of business leaders said, cybersecurity is really important for 95% of them, but only half have a formal cybersecurity strategy, and only half have a cyber awareness training campaign for employees as well. And if we're looking at this in the context of Ireland's digital economy, which is really, really important and significant to our society, digitally intensive companies employ 210,000 people in Ireland, account for 13% of our GDP, 26% of exports. You saw that we have some of the leading multinational companies in their EMEA headquarters based here. Dublin has become a data center hub for Europe with the location of a number of data centers. And if you look at our digital readiness, we score quite well on international comparison. We rank 30 globally, But if you look at our cybersecurity preparedness, we're not ranking at high, 73rd globally. So there's a mismatch there between our digital readiness and development and our cybersecurity preparedness. And from a PwC report, it found that cybercrime attacks in Irish organisations were double the global average. The cost of those attacks were higher than the global average. And 69% of companies spend the same or more on cleanup, and that was 50% higher than the global average. So cybercrime is a threat to Irish companies, to government agencies, which we have seen last year with the ransomware attack on our health service, which crippled hospitals across the country. And also cybercrime is a threat to Ireland's international reputation as being a location for digital enterprise as well. And again, this sits in an international context of non-technical challenges as well, where we're seeing an increase in cybercrime globally. We're seeing the impact of digital transformation and COVID-19 and people moving to remote working, manufacturing companies moving to digitalization, to the geopolitical crisis and the cyber implications of the war in Ukraine, and the skills shortages that are impacting companies globally. And these challenges, again, are non-technical in nature, but they are really, really complex. And no one organization, no one company, no one government agency is going to solve these complex challenges by themselves. And so we need conferences like this. We need organizations and communities to be able to bring people together to work on these complex challenges across, geographical boundaries, cultural boundaries, political boundaries, whatever they may be. And this is what we're trying to do through this clustering model, which I suppose is looking to really grow. The clustering model has been used to grow sectors internationally for a number of years. And it brings this kind of multidisciplinary stakeholder approach whereby industry is working together. You have startups, SMEs, multinationals across a supply chain or a value chain. But you also have all the other key stakeholders from public bodies to the universities providing the graduates, the talent, the research and innovation, to finance and VCs that are funding the development of companies, to media who are communicating about that sector or those challenges, and all of the other organizations for collaboration, whether they be tech meetups or more formal trade associations. And so when we were starting out with Cyber Ireland in 2018, we needed something to bring the industry together. Although we had a lot of cybersecurity companies here, they weren't necessarily talking to each other. And so what we identified as a key challenge to bring these companies together was around skills. There was about 30 or so companies in Cork that were all finding skills challenges difficult for their companies to be able to grow and serve clients internationally. And so the university in Cork brought them in to get them to talk, to share their experiences and to see what we could do. And while the immediate challenge was around getting people with technical expertise, 5 years plus experience, they realized that they would need to work with the education sector to develop a pipeline of graduates coming out with cybersecurity skills that wasn't being done possibly at the time. And that if a number of companies could show this is our need for the next 5 years in regards to cybersecurity talent and roles, that the education institutes could then change their courses to be able to fill these gaps. And so that's what started out the development of a cluster, because at the time there was no industry representative body for the cybersecurity industry in Ireland. At the time there was a number of security meetups around the country, but there was nobody coordinating what was happening. At the time it was one-to-one engagements between industry and academia working on courses. And at the time there was nobody collecting all of the shared challenges and needs of the cybersecurity industry to engage with government. And so we looked at the cybersecurity challenges around skills at the time in Ireland. We mapped out the sector from the companies that were providing the products and services to the integrators, the distributors, to the end users and the consumers, to who were the universities and the research institutes and the government agencies. We went around the country. We ran workshops in Cork, Galway and Dublin. We had hundreds of cybersecurity professionals show up. There was only standing room at the back of some of the venues. And people were there openly discussing what were the challenges for their companies and for their industries. And we built real buy-in from the people there to understand what their needs. And of course, we couldn't do everything. We couldn't boil the ocean. So it was really important to focus down on specific needs that we could address. And it was important that we had buy-in from across these key stakeholders, and so we put together an advisory board made up of key leaders from industry, both pure-play cybersecurity companies and diversified companies, both multinationals and indigenous Irish companies. We had representatives from academia, representatives from government, as well as the National Cybersecurity Centre. And so we set out a strategy to represent the cybersecurity industry in Ireland, to provide that collective voice for industry, and having a goal to enhance innovation and growth and competitiveness of these companies, and to put Ireland on the map as being a cybersecurity leader in Europe. We have a number of supporters, so we're based in Munster Technological University in Cork. We're funded by a government agency supporting Irish companies and foreign direct investment, as well as the National Cybersecurity Centre. And some of the actual initiatives that we have done to date fall under these 4 broad headings, and I'm going to just discuss them briefly to show how we're doing that collaborative piece of work from really a grassroots organisation, because it's just myself and a marketing manager who are running it, but it's the time and dedication from the board and the various different members that are driving this to date. So we have that foundation level of building the community, bringing people together to share information, share expertise, what they've done, so that when you meet somebody and you've built up that relationship and that trust, you can start looking at some of the challenges. And the second part is, how can we grow a homegrown cybersecurity pipeline of talent in Ireland, working with industry and academia? The third one is looking at collaborative research and development between industry and academia. And the fourth one then is supporting both SMEs and multinationals to be able to grow and export globally from Ireland. And how we're doing that is through a number of events and meetups. We have regional chapters around the country. We have special interest groups. We collect information on advocacy to relate that to government agencies. We have a threat intelligence series that we ran last year, taking people from the introduction to threat intelligence to more advanced topics. We have a talented skills working group. We don't provide any education and training, but we need to understand the needs of industry and relay that to the education and training providers so that they can align their courses with the needs of industry. And then there's a key piece here in looking down the line on how are we going to attract the next generation of cybersecurity professionals into the industry. So working with young people and students from around the country, and also career changers and adults, why you should look at maybe coming into a career in cybersecurity, why it's of interest, why it's a valuable career, besides the salaries that are available at the moment. And so we launched a cybersecurity skills report in 2021, which outlined the cybersecurity skills shortages in industry and the skill gaps. And from this, we were able to talk to a number of universities to say, look, these are the skills shortages that we've been able to find. This is the gaps that need to be filled. How can you address those? And the main challenge for industry was people don't want to go back and spend 2 or 3 years doing a master's while they're already working in industry. It takes a lot of time and effort. And so we worked with 4 of the leading universities to take modules from across all of the different universities and to be able to create course pathways for specific skills shortages within companies. And so we have a number of people from across industry now on these courses, which can all be done online, picking modules from across the universities and developing out a number of course pathways around SOC analysts, pen testers for financial services, looking at OT security in manufacturing, IT managers in SMEs. The funding for this came from government. There was €8 million in funding, which probably should have been given to us to just getting the academic institutes to work together alone, never mind delivering the program as well. But we've also looked at supporting women in cybersecurity, and we have a fantastic group, Cyber Women Ireland, which is supporting the development of and support of women working in the industry. They launched a report last year around some of the challenges around diversity and gender gaps in cybersecurity. And this is really important, not just from a political perspective, because it's the right thing to do, but if we're looking at solving skills challenges and we're leaving out 50% of the potential workforce, that just doesn't make sense. It's crazy. Looking at how can we attract young people into a career in cybersecurity, we applied for funding from the government for this cybersecurity summer camp, working with secondary schools. And so this was just run in June, a couple of weeks ago, where we had over 100 kids participating on a cyber summer camp. It was online, and then they go into the universities across those 4 universities in the country to learn about cybersecurity, ethical hacking. There's a capture the flag competition. And we have industry speakers coming into them and telling them about their careers and how they got into cybersecurity as well. We've looked at the research landscape in Ireland and mapped out who are the key research centres and the areas that they're working in. And we're looking to matchmake those research centres with the people working in research in industry as well. Our key goal really here is to have a national cybersecurity research centre in Ireland that's bringing together industry and academia, working on fundamental research, but also then looking at applied research as well as a centre for gravity. And then finally, around that grow and export piece, it's looking at making connections internationally with other clusters, supporting Irish companies to go global, and also attracting FDI into the country. So even just this week, we had a Cyber Investors Days event where we invited over investors from Europe and cybersecurity companies from across Europe. We had 6 Irish companies pitching to them and 6 European companies pitching for investment. And a number of them walked away with significant investment out of that. And then finally, we had a response to the pandemic here, where the cybersecurity community wanted to do something to support the national effort. And so we worked with the National Cybersecurity Centre in developing a panel of subject matter experts that would be able to respond in a serious cybersecurity incident to the healthcare sector. And unfortunately, this happened in May last year, and these industry representatives, volunteers, were able to stand up and contribute in a limited way at the time. And so to conclude, Nartal Céil is a really fitting title for this conference and for this presentation, because cybersecurity isn't just a technical challenge, but a political, economic and societal challenge that we need to work together on if we're going to solve. What we have found works is that it is industry-led. You have the support of academia, you have the support of government, but it needs to be for society at the end of the day. We need to understand who are we doing this for, and that we need to think long-term, not just about company profits, revenues, job creation, but how are we actually solving the challenges for cybersecurity into the future, and the role of passionate and dedicated leaders, people like you here in the room today that are willing to go above and beyond their everyday work and business to contribute back to the community and to society, and moving from cooperation to collaboration. And what that means is we're quite good at working with each other. If somebody asks you to help out on a project or for a favor, but how can we move to a shared vision where we're working on a project together, which could be on supporting national cyber resilience for the country. So that's everything for me. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Eoin. If anyone has any questions, as I said, we have microphones at the front and at the back.
Hello. Thank you for your presentation. And I think the education is a very important thing. Oh, sorry. My name is Kenta Nakayama from NEC Corporation from Japan. Thank you for your presentation. And I have one question about the education. So the education is very important thing for cybersecurity. So you said that there is some reskilling and they are making a new job. Is maybe the education is a very important thing. So I would like to know how is the education for children? I mean, from the elementary school and junior high school, is there any education about the cybersecurity? Because I know the United Kingdom has education for children, I think. Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, thanks very much. The UK are leaders in this space, with regards to cybersecurity awareness for society and in particular for young people as well. They have a fantastic program called, I think it's the UK Cyber First,
yes.
Which is basically what we copied. And we don't want to reinvent the wheel here. We're just looking at international best practices and seeing what can we do here in Ireland. And so in Ireland, there isn't a cybersecurity awareness program in primary or high school level, as far as I'm aware, but there has been some significant developments over the last maybe 12 months. So we had this Cyber First, or Cyber Academy program. And then also there's been a short course that's been developed for 16-year-olds in high school, which has been delivered by a university and also the NCSC. And it was run on a pilot basis and going to be rolled out next year. And then there's a number of not-for-profit organisations looking at cyber awareness for primary level schools, but not just the children. I suppose the important part is communicating that to parents and teachers as well. And that's a key part. We need to upskill and train the teachers to be aware of cybersecurity and how they can convey that to their students as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering what methodology did you use to assess which companies were working in cybersecurity and how much people you had in the sector in Ireland? My side remark on that will be that was it easier for you because you're a smaller country, and might it be some issues doing the same assessment with larger country where the sector might be more with more companies and more people working on it?
Yeah, a lot of things are easier in Ireland because we're a small company, small country, and relatively well connected. But the methodology we use, so we actually hired a consultancy company that had done a similar report in the UK on an annual basis on the size of the cybersecurity sector there. And so they were able to take that methodology and apply it to Ireland. And so we defined out a taxonomy of cybersecurity products and services and operations that we were going to identify companies towards. And we went through lists of companies that we had and Google searched other companies to be able to identify which ones were delivering those cybersecurity products or services to put them into that pure play category. And then we went outside of that and looked for any companies that had those keywords through online searches that maybe were part of their products or services, a smaller part of their products and services that they were providing, or companies that were in the diversified, that had SOCs or product security teams here as well. And so we were able to put them into that diversified category as well. And so then we went and had estimates of the employment in each of those companies by sending out a survey to them. So there was about 490 companies identified, sent out surveys to all of them, and got surveys actually back from about 100 companies. So it was a really nice sample there to understand what was the employment in them. We went through LinkedIn and did scraping of the data there to understand the employment within the other organizations that we weren't able to find. And we were able to, I suppose, scale that or extrapolate that data out as well using the UK data where they had a larger survey.
Thank you.
We've only got about a minute left, so if you can keep your questions quick and we can see if we can get through.
Thanks very much, Jane O'Loughlin from CERT New Zealand. Thank you for a fantastic talk, really interesting. Just curious, just in terms of selling this into politicians, I imagine you had to do a bit of a sell job to get the funding. What was the thing that excited them? Was it the future promise of great tax returns or tax revenue or something else?
Yeah, it's important depending on what government department you're talking to. So we got initial funding from the government agency that supports foreign direct investment. And for them, it was the opportunity to grow the cybersecurity FDI in Ireland. And so we were pushing an open door for them where we were able to put up the list of logos here of the cybersecurity companies and the operations that were here, and also the opportunity for growth internationally. Likewise, when we went to the Enterprise Ireland, the government agency supporting SMEs, it was a different picture that we had to sell to them around the opportunity for growth for Irish companies. And similarly, when we talk to Department of Communications, it's looking at national cyber resilience and the importance of industry and public-private partnerships in addressing that as well. So it helps to have this data then to back it up.
Okay, we might go slightly over, but we can get the last two people in.
Hi, it's John Mulhall from Irish Tech News. Thanks for the talk. Great commentary and great information around what's happening nationally with your efforts and the partnerships you've developed. What's your position or what's your thoughts around the need for an international agency that is, for want of a better word, matching the World Wide Web in terms of scope, because that really is the attack surface for all cyber threats that come in to Ireland. The HSE, of course, got hit with a ransomware attack. That was an international attack. And the vast majority of attacks are international and that pose serious risk to government and industry and indeed the people, be it the HSE example?
Well, this is an easy answer. I'm not a technical person, so I'm going to leave that to the experts. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, last question, please. Thanks.
Hey, that was a really good talk. I'm Keane, I lead a security response team for a multinational. And I'm just curious to hear your thoughts about workforce alignment. You touched off, the pipeline, getting graduates into companies, right, in different roles. And what we're finding is, yes, there's graduates coming online, but often they go through a 4-year course, and maybe in year 4 they do a big shot project where they kind of apply theory, and then they're ready for the workforce. But to be frank, some of them kind of lack that tacit knowledge, right, that you pick up in the workforce. And we often look to bring in graduates midway through, summer internships or, during Easter holidays or whatever, but it's never easy. And I feel a lot of it is a consequence of no real relationships between corporations and the academic institutions, not only in Ireland but elsewhere. And I just want to kind of hear your thoughts about maybe how we could bridge that gap and bring people in sooner so that they get actual experience while they're learning the theory over that 2, 3 or 4 year degree.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. That was one of the key kind of challenges coming back from industry, that the graduates coming out weren't ready to move into the roles that were there. And so I suppose that's looking at inputting on the course modules that are there across STEM courses, making sure that you have industry lecturers coming in as guest speakers, looking at what technologies are there as well, and making sure that companies are providing actual opportunities for people in 3rd year to go in and work in cybersecurity and internships, and having graduate programs there as well. So one of the areas we're looking at is a federated cybersecurity graduate program where we're linking up a number of companies that are providing graduate roles in cybersecurity, that they're coming in and actually they're on a similar program where they're getting the technical skills but also the non-technical skills as well, and that these graduates are meeting with each other so they're part of a group. But yeah, I'd be happy to talk about it further afterwards.
All right, thanks Eoin very much. Excellent presentation. And just a reminder, please fill in your surveys. If you liked it, give it a 5, as the Uber drivers say. Thanks.